don't want to do that. So then I got, I was very dominant. So I was like, well, listen, we're going to make this money. This is what we're going to do. And it's a quick, X amount of money for the night. This is all we're doing. We just got to do this, 4 or 5 times in a year. And that's it, He just wasn't into it. I opened up doors for the enemy that I know nothing about. I didn't know nothing about. So my sister Lynette, finds out that I was throwing these shows right after getting married. And she said, Evie, you're opening doors to the enemy that you're not going to be able to close. And I was like, wow, I don't know what that means. And she's like, it's a spiritual battle, Evie. It's a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual thing. She said, you're going to open up spiritual doors to the enemy that you're not going to be able to close. And I had no clue what she was talking about. I had no clue what she was talking about. I just said, okay, I'm going to stop. I don't want to open up these doors. I don't know what you're talking about. And Nick understood. So that opened up doors for Nick I was very dominant. I was just, I talked to my husband very foul. I had little respect, because of where I grew up and what I come from. And our roles were different. I wasn't submissive at all. Like at all. It was what it was. This is what I said. This is what I want. And that's it. Very Jezebel. Let me tell you. Very Jezzy. I called myself Jezzy. Listen. So, you want that vineyard, honey? Hold on. Let me get, just off the hook. So, oh Lord, be with me. So, we stopped. I stopped. I was like, okay. Nick said to me, you either stop or me and you have to stop. Like you very jazzy. Me and you have to stop. We gotta cut this out. So I was like, okay, I want my family. I want this guy. He's a really good guy. I started doing good. Went back to just having regular jobs with W-2. And I was doing great. We were doing great. We moved to these condos. We were doing fantastic. And there was some infidelity that had happened with just communication, just like emotional infidelity. And so instead of me just being like, all right, we're going to work through this, we're going to fix this, my mindset was completely different. I was like, okay, so you do that and I do this. Okay, so you do that and I do this. This is how we're going to do it then. If that's what you want. And that didn't work. Of course, he never agreed to that. It was just not good. And that happened a couple of times, maybe twice in a span of like 3 years. So then I figured I treated him very badly because I'm like, okay, now you owe me. Now you owe me because you did what you did. Now you owe me. So I treated him very badly. We decided to break up and we separated. We didn't divorce. We separated. And during the separation, instead of me trying to work on me, I just was acting up. I started acting up and it got to the point where I was going to lose my marriage, my everything. I was going to lose everything. And I called that sister Lynette. And I said, Lynette, there's something that something that I need you. I need you to come to my house and I need you to get on your knees and pray for me because I don't want to live like this anymore, but I don't know how to get out. I don't know how to get out of this mindset that I have. It's crazy. So she came over and she prayed for me and she left me there. We prayed. I remember listening to Yolanda Adams. And mind you, I've always did music. I might have been wild child, but I always did music. And I used to do rap. I used to do I used to write rap music. I used to sing. So I opened up for D Block. I don't know if anybody knows about, we opened up for particular people. So back in the day, my life to me, it was great. It was liberal and it was very worldly, but it was a good life because I had, but I was dead. I was dead. And so I realized that. So I asked Lynette to come over and she prayed for me. And she left me there, like, with this prayer, and she talked about, like, God changing my mindset, and that God free me from what I remember these words too. She said, God free her from what she feels she is bound to. Like, because I felt bound to it, and I felt like, and to me, this is all I know. This is all I know. You know, that was my motto. This is all I know. So Lynette left me there, and when she left, I called Nick, and Nick was like, "Nah, I'm not coming back. Like, we're just gonna be done." And I never thought about harming myself or anything like that ever in my life. But for some reason, there was something in my head that was telling me to do that. And so I went over to my cabinet. Mind you, I was a pharmacy. So I went over to my cabinets, and I dabbled with a little something that I had there. And I remember being so consumed. Lynette took my daughter that day, by the way. I remember being so consumed that I was very, like, I could barely hear. So Lynette had dropped her back off, like, later on that evening, because that was early. She dropped her off, and I remember Zanaya, little, coming into the room, and I was done. I was laying down. I couldn't get back up. Zanaya started praying for me, and she prayed that the Lord would save me from myself.
The baby did?
Yeah. Yeah. And every single year, Lynette had that little girl write on a little piece of paper, and I should have had them for today, and a little piece of paper that says, New Year's resolution. What's your New Year's resolution? That Jesus will save my mom from herself. Over and over again for like 5 years straight.
Wow.
So she knew that there was something different from Mom's life and from Titinette's life. You know what I mean? That was completely different. So I didn't come to Christ right then and there. After Lynette had left, I took the pills, and I remember Zanaya praying for me. And then Nick and I, we reconciled. We were like, you know what? I don't think that, maybe we shouldn't do this. We should, stick around for Zanaya, blah, 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 blah. We get back together, and we wanted to do life together. But he's like, you can't keep just doing all these things that you're just used to, Evie. Like, you just can't do that. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna really work this out. So I said, why don't we try to go to church? Let's try to go to church. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what it is, but let's just try. In the meantime, Lynette and her husband, Lynette married a pastor that was ordained in that charismatic church that I was telling you about. Mm-hmm. He went to the pastor and said, there's a couple of things that I'm seeing that are unbiblical. And they were in the New Apostolic Reformation. Now I know better, but I didn't know anything. All I know is hood. That's what I know. So I'm like, Lynette's like, they leave the church. Okay. So her husband goes to the pastor and says, there's a couple of things that I'm seeing that's unbiblical. Can we sit down in the Word of God and let's talk about it? And he said, well, who are you to tell me what to do in my house? So he was like, well, this is God's house. This is not your house. This is God's house. So I'm coming to you to talk to you about what's going on in God's house that's unbiblical. We got to talk about that. So he told my sister's husband to go. He said, you got to get up out of here. You don't like what's happening in my house? You got to get up out of here. In the meantime, I'm still talking about going to church. But remember, that whole charismatic thing that was going on, I couldn't be a part of it. It was so weird to me because it connected too much with what was going on in Puerto Rico. So when I get to her house one day, randomly, and I'm like, Lynette, I'm going to go to church with you on Sunday. It was like a Saturday. She had this gathering in her house. Mind you, I wasn't at her house all the time. My daughter was already big. So she got all these people in her house, and there are all these people from the church. And I'm like, can I come in? Mind you, I smell like cigarettes, and Lord knows what else I must smell like. It's just whatever. So I go in, and I just mingle. I don't know anybody. So I'm saying to my sister, are you going back to that church that you were going to? She was like, no, sister, I got to talk to you about, you won't understand. You won't understand, but I just want to give you like a heads up. Let's go upstairs. So she goes upstairs and she tells me about what happened, what I just told you about her husband, and her husband basically was kicked out of the church. So I said, well, I thought all you church people got along. Like, I thought that this was like a church thing, like, you know, like all of you guys got along. She says, no, sister, you got to understand. There's things that people do that are unbiblical. And when they're unbiblical, you got to tell them about themselves. And I'm like, well, what do we do? Do we go like, do y'all gonna fight or something? Like, what's going on? Does anybody got to go to their house with something? You need some metal? I got some metal. She's like, girl, no, that's not how you handle things. You go to them and you go to them with the word, and God fights it, girl. God fights it. God is the one that removes stuff. So we was just removed. And I'm like, so what does that mean? You ain't gonna go to church no more? She says, we're gonna do the church right here. This is where the church is. That's why you see all these people in my house. I said, okay, so can I come here? And she's like, well, yeah, of course you can come here, but it's gonna be a lot of things. Exactly. I said, pull up. There's going to be a lot of things that's going to be really difficult for you. I'm just going to need you to just sit back and watch. Just learn. And I'm like, okay. In the meantime, she's going through the cage stage because she was brought up in a charismatic church and her husband's pulling her out saying, nope, he got Logos. He starts studying the word of God, getting into systematic theology. So he's seeing all this stuff that's going on that's wrong. He's pulling his wife out, like covering her well, you know, as he should. And she's like kicking and screaming because we're Jezzies. We come from a Jezzy. So we're a bunch of Jezzies. So we're trying to control everything. So she's kicking and screaming, not wanting to go. And he's like, no, sit down. I need to sit you down. I need to help you understand what's going on, Lynette. This is what's going on. So they start getting into the word real heavy. Mind you, I didn't go for a while. I just went to her house here and then. I didn't stay or nothing. I just went to visit. Whenever they would have a little something, a gathering, I would go. The Lord provided a church for $1 for them in our area, right by a college, right around the corner from a college, no lie. So for $1, this church was going up. It was actually, you know, gonna go to the city, I guess. So they gave the church to $1 for $1, and they were able to start congregating there. So when they were there, he was still ordained as an evangelical pastor, right? Through that organization. They didn't strip him from his license. They couldn't do that. But he started doing studies, like big theological studies, like fundamentals of the faith. And, you know, his Sunday school classes were hermeneutic classes. Tell me about that. It's crazy. So I came in right at that time. So I said, she called me up one day. She was like, guess what? I said, what? She said, we got a church. I said, you got a church? She says, yeah, have you been going to church? I said, no, girl, I've been trying to go to these churches. I don't understand anything. What's going on? I don't know. So she's like, just start coming to this church. So I start coming. Mind you, my brother-in-law is a hip hop artist. He's a hip hop Christian artist. So when he starts this ministry, he starts it with open mic nights. I was like, what? This is cool. You know, the way that they did church was like cafe style. They did it downstairs in the basement with like lights, and, you know, their worship was different. I was just like, what the world is this? This is different. I couldn't stay for a long period of time because I would get real emotional. And I didn't like the fact that I was getting super emotional with what I was hearing. So I would leave a lot. Mind you, I consumed a lot of things. You know, at this point, I messed up my back. So that I was consuming the pharmaceuticals, the legal ones, plus the illegal ones. So I was just doing just too much. And yeah, I just felt dirty. I felt dirty. So then I said to her, listen, I keep going. Y'all keep having service. But there's something about going that I feel like I'm not a part of. I'm not a part of you guys. You're all lifting up your hands all in unison, and everybody knows what's going on. I don't know nothing. I can't keep coming to something that I don't know. It's like a letter that wasn't written to me. So she's like, keep coming. Just keep going and ask him. Pray. I said, well, who am I praying to? What am I praying, Lynette? So then she sat me down one day and she said, let me give you the gospel. Because first of all, you're finally allowing me to sit down and tell you anything. So I want to tell you what the gospel is. So she did. And the minute that she told me about me being a wretched sinner, dead in my sins, I literally understood it. I didn't say, well, me. You know, I was like, yes, I'm jacked up. You're absolutely right. You know what I mean? My mindset was jacked up for all of those years. Like, there's nothing to, like, I didn't feel good. You know, like, I was the type of person that when somebody would come to me and give me a track, I would say, I don't need your track. Thank you very much. And they would try to pray for me. And I would say, no, 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 no. Even in church. No, 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 no. Don't put your hands on me. I don't know you. And I don't know what you got going on. You know, I don't want anything to do with it. So there was another situation that Nick and I weren't doing well. And at this time I started doing a lot. We separated twice. So the first separation was only a very short amount of time. Second separation, we've been together for 20 years. The second separation was about 1.5 years. During that 1.5 years, Nick was talking to somebody and I was talking to somebody. And it was horrible. It was horrible. And we just lived our lives like that. It was really bad. And during that time, my best friend loved my husband. And my best friend kept saying, you know what, I don't like what you're doing. You know, I don't like what's going on. And she was into Santeria, what I saw in Puerto Rico. That's what I saw in Puerto Rico is called Santeria. So it's idolatry, Baal worship, basically. And her best friend was a santo, which they read cards, they tell you about your future, you know, they're witches, is what the heck they are. And I didn't play with that. Listen, I didn't mess around with nothing. I didn't want above or beneath. I wanted nothing to do with anything. And she kept saying to me, I need you to talk to him. I need you to talk to him because I feel like you're going to lose everything. You know, you're going back over the same route, Evie. So I was like, all right, let me just go down. Let's go over there and go talk to him. So we go down and we go talk to him in the basement. So I go and I sit down in this basement and my best friend is over here. The guy's wife is here and the guy's across from me. And she told me we was just going to go over there and, you know, just enjoy the evening with some cocktails and Lord knows what else. And we go down there and he pulls out the cards and I said, no. I don't do this. No. So I started walking upstairs and my best friend, like literally with tears in her eyes, she was just like, Evie, I need you to at least listen. Just listen. You're headed down the wrong path again. It's just not going to be good for you. So she basically sat me down. I sat back down. He started pulling out the cards. The minute that man spoke, Jonathan, I couldn't hear nothing he was saying. He was muted. My ears went. And I was like, bah! I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. Because I can hear these girls talking. And I just started laughing. So he was disrespected. Because he's a high priest or whatever you want to call him. He was like, appalled. But I thought it was hilarious. And he looked at them and they started talking and I can hear them clear as day. But as soon as he started talking again, he was muted. So I said, oh, snap, I'm out here. I don't know what's going on, but I'm out of here. I went to stand up. And when he stood up, I could hear him. He said, come over here a minute. I said, where? He said, right here. He put alcohol on the floor, Jonathan, and turned it on and started dancing in the fire. He was walking with the fire, and the fire was up and down his leg. So he said, come here. I said, I ain't going over there. I said, matter of fact, I'm going back upstairs. So when I went to go past him, the smoke went and blew out. So I ran up the stairs. I was like, I ain't playing around. I'm not playing around. I ran up the stairs. I'm out of here. I'm out. I want nothing to do with anything. My friend said, I never saw no crap like that in my life. And she was freaking out. And the guy stayed downstairs up. He was like this. His wife said, he's never seen anything like that in his life. And I was like, I don't know what anybody's talking about. So this is around the time that we start going to church. Things start happening in our marriage as soon as we start going to church. So Nick and I just keep going. Nick wasn't really involved as much as I wanted to be involved. I wanted to do everything. I wanted to go to every Bible study. I wanted to go to everything, the hermeneutic classes, all of that, because my best friend is starting to tell me that stuff is going to start hitting the fan. It's going to start hitting the fan. I didn't understand, but it was going to hit the fan. So, and I already hit the fan. I don't want to hit the fan again. So I'm like, okay. I started going, and I literally, once my sister shared the gospel with me, I started praying. But I didn't know exactly what to say. So I would just say things like, listen, if you're up there and you know me and you want me to know you, I need you to reveal yourself to me. I need you to show me like who you are. Like, how do I figure this out? So then they kept telling me, you read his word. You read his word. You'll figure out by reading his word. I keep reading his word. And like I said, it was like a letter that wasn't written to me because I didn't understand nothing. So my brother-in-law said, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to do this book with you, and I still got it. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world. Fundamentals of the Faith by John MacArthur. And so that's when I started to understand what is what. What was a letter, to who were the letters? What was history? What was poetry? What was the major prophets? What were the minor prophets? And I started to get it. Then, because I have such an addictive personality, I got addicted to it. And then I needed to know. I didn't want to know because he told me or this told me. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to do that.
Right.
I started going to the library. I started to find out what happened in history. Like I turned into a nerd. I wanted to go to the library. I wanted to find out what happened in history. I wanted to find out what happened in the Hellenistic period. I wanted to find out why we had a calendar that said after Christ, before Christ. You know what I mean? I got crazy with it. Mm-hmm. And the more that I got crazy with it, the more God revealed himself to me. One time I wrote down all the 12 tribes and I wrote down their original names and I read the sentence and I freaked out. I cried for like 20 minutes. So those kinds of things, God revealed himself to me through me asking him to, you know, and don't get me wrong. I didn't stop all the consumptions right away. They followed me like a thorn in my side. They stabbed me up all the time. They was right there. I couldn't get rid of them. So little by little, my consumptions went, you know, it wasn't like some shebang happened. You know, it wasn't like that for me at all. It wasn't. So then, you know, the gathering, this was all happening at the gathering before my brother-in-law, when he got that church for $1. Then during the church that we have for $1, some man came in from Bible Fellowship Church, which is an organization that plants mission churches. So he comes and he listens to my brother-in-law and he's like, this dude is solid. This dude is expositing God's word. Like, we got to get this dude. We got to send him to school and do whatever we can. So they were like, listen, are you open to becoming a mission church? We've been praying for 15 years for a city church, because not for nothing, it's nothing but a bunch of Caucasian people that are digging into God's word like this. And he's like, absolutely. So he goes to school, you know, they find a building for him. And we've had this, first we were downtown sharing a church with somebody. And I just kept going. Everything that the church did, I did. Every single thing. Whether I knew about it or not, or whether I understood it or not, I went. And once we shared a church for a little bit, for a couple of months, and I started to see a lot of things transition and happen. There was a lot of spiritual warfare going on. You know, like we were downtown, so there was like people that would come in and hissing and everything, all kinds of crazy stuff, you know? So I was starting to see kind of stuff like that. But there was never no like, we're gonna rebuke you or nothing like that. It was like, okay, that's where you at. Well, you're gonna have to sit down and listen to the word. Yep, because you're gonna get up out of here in a minute. You know what I'm saying? Or you're gonna fall to the ground, and you're gonna, and it's gonna be released, and we're gonna be good. So I was like, wow, this is like different. So then this other church happened, and that's where we're at now, and we've been there for about 3 years. And so I became a member of the first church, that the gathering. And I just, like I said, anything that they do from Old Testament to New Testament. Even our Bible studies are expositing God's word. So when I learned things like I chose you before the foundations of the world, it meant something to me. Yep. When I read things like Isaiah 43:2 or something like that, when it says, when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. Like literally.
Right.
Those kinds of things resonated after a while, and the Lord just continued to do a mighty work. He did not, he pulled me out of my funk. Like he pulled me out of this mindset that I had. And so now what I do is I do the work. I go out 3 times a week. I'm at the baby mills, as you already know. I go to 2 different areas. I got to drive about 25 minutes to the one, and the other one is in my town. And so I offer help. So I'm basically like, my mindset is not pro-life. My mindset is I'm an abolitionist. It's nothing but the gospel. I'm sending you to your local church. I have a lot of churches I can get you connected with. I walk with women. I got a Google number. If somebody wants to call, I can help them from shelter to food, to going back to school, to whatever. I was even working with women that were coming out of sex trafficking. All of those things that I thought were all okay. Now my mindset is different, and now I'm helping women try to get out of those things. Even men. You can even help men. And then now my missions trip, when we go on missions, it's the same thing. We go to a very, very poor area. There's a lot of drug activity. So I'm able to speak to people about the gospel and how the Lord pulled me out of my stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He saved me from myself. And he can do the same for anybody. There's a lot of things that are part of my testimony that now, I remember when I came to Christ, I was crying like, Lord, why'd you let me go through so much? If you were going to save me. I didn't understand that in the beginning of my walk. I really didn't. And when he started to transform my tongue and the way that I think and how the order of my house, that was very hard for me. I was just like, I remember falling down to my knees one day and was like, I'm so pissed off. I don't even know how to talk right. And my sister was like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, I want to say things that I want to say some really bad things. And she's like, but that's what happens. Your whole mindset starts changing, sister. So I'm thankful, and that 24-year-old now, that was a little girl that prayed for me, one thing that she says is, Mom, I feel, I call her my prodigal, and she says, Mom, one thing that I can't forget is the truth of the gospel, because I literally seen it happen in your life. Like, I don't know today if I would believe if it wasn't for the way that the Lord completely has transformed your life, Mom. Like, seriously. So my life is a living testimony to those that know me, that personally know me. And that's why I continue to pray for those that, like my sister, that we were going traveling to Philadelphia and stuff, doing things we weren't supposed to be doing. I pray for her often. I pray for her kids often. They lived that lifestyle with me, and they're not still in that, but their mindset is real liberal like that, So just to know that the Lord can pull you out of anything, and he can change your mindset, and he will. Listen, people that say, oh, well, I don't know anything about the Lord, he will. His sheep, he says, my sheep hear my voice.
Right.
And I was completely confused with the whole triune nature of God for a while. I was like, what? Who? I was so confused. I was like, what? It was so confusing to me, but I kept digging, man. I even went back into church history. Like, let me know what happened in the first century. You know, like I need to know, like, what is this? And God has just brought me to this beautiful place that I'm just so amazed at
I'm
what
glad.
he's done. You
I'm
know,
glad, Evie,
and
because you have such a beautiful soul about you. I mean, and you're just a great storyteller too, as well. So it's really, like I said, I was waiting to hear this, and now it was worth the wait because it's such a beautiful story. The way you tell it is just such a beautiful thing, and I know coming out of that life can be a challenge for people because I know a lot of people, and I grew up around that, so I understand when you're talking, and it's just a beautiful story. Let's get a few people to comment or ask you questions about
yeah,
yourself,
yeah, I'm
and
done. Yeah,
let me
that's
start.
basically.
Let me start by asking you: did you, like so many people, they point to a single day or single moment where they were transformed and they came to the Lord? But it sounds like yours was more gradual, which is how mine was in a lot of ways. But how do you see your transformation happening? Like, do you know when it happened, or do you just see it as a gradual sort of something that developed over time?
Yeah, for me, I think it was something that developed over time because to me, Christ wasn't logical.
Mm,
You know, to me, it was I was like, there's no way, you
mm,
know? And so the more that I dug into history and like I wanted to know who wrote about him outside of the Bible,
mm,
those kinds of things. When I read those kinds of things, and then I got into Egyptian history and like
mm,
Greek mythology, and I read that and I read about the gods, I was like, yo, this is crazy. Like, this is real.
right.
This is real. And then I think my aha moment, I'm going to say I had an aha moment. I think that aha moment was when I wrote those 12 tribe names down.
Hmm.
And I remember falling to my knees like, this is real.
Right.
This is real, real, real. Like it's scaring me real.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I had a sense of not fear, but a reverence.
Hmm.
Like you are bigger than what I imagined.
Right.
Like I couldn't believe it. So the Lord I think that was my aha moment for sure.
Anybody else? Anybody got questions for Sister Evie? Anybody?
Can I just make a comment? Evie, this was an amazing testimony, and I love your transparency. I love everything about it. I can relate in a lot of ways. Some ways I can't, but man, oh man, I see how God works. We have to get to that bottom. We have to get to that bottom before he actually takes us by the hand and brings us up. But man, what a beautiful testimony, sister. Thank you for this. It's been such a blessing.
Sister Meg, go ahead.
Hi, Evie. That was really good, sister, and entertaining. um, I love it. I love how animated you are. It just shows, that the joy that you have in the Lord now is just something that is purely from Him, because there is no good outside of God. And so the joy that you have right now, you may have happiness then, but you have joy now, and that's eternal. Glory to God. One question that I had for you is, did you ever have a conversation with your daughter when you had came to the Lord and you received salvation? And was there something that happened that you ever remembered, like those Post-its when she prayed for you, and you remembered that in your walk?
Yes, absolutely. Great question. I was wild for a while though, Meg. I was wild for a while, but we talked about it when she went off to college. And that was a long time. I came to faith at like 34 years old. Like I felt like around 34 years old. And she went off. She was doing a lot of AAU basketball, and she went off to college. And when she went off to college, we had that talk. She said to me, Mom, I pray for you. What's crazy is I would pray with her, but I would